Alright, hello everybody, and it's been a freaking long time since I've read this. I'm gonna be honest, I've been kind of putting it off for a little bit, mostly because I've been trying to balance this out with, like, my other projects, because I honestly really don't want to keep reading this. I really don't want to keep reading this, but oh well, like, I have an obligation. It's like, I've started now, I can't really do it later. I mean, I might have to. I'm thinking I'll like change my uploading schedule to a. I don't know if you can hear that in there. I might have to change my uploading schedule to like a bi-weekly basis. If that's not a word, I'm making it up now. Where I'm just gonna upload like every other week so that I can like do it slower, but like work on other things, yada yada. Because, um, like when you, like, I'm sorry for this tangent, but it's like when you're like watching a movie or like something and then like they have like a notification for like a game and it's just saying if you're experiencing like heart problems or whatever else, turn it off immediately. That's what I'm like when I'm reading Empress Theresa. It's just like I'm like if you're experiencing like whatever like symptoms, it's like I think for my health I should like take a break. Like because like I genuinely am not really feeling that good reading this if you want me to be honest. Like okay, like chapter 7. Let me recap this. There was a it's been a while. There was like a meeting. Theresa was talking with I forgot who it was. Was it the Prime Minister guy, Blair? I think it was Blair. Yeah, and she was talking about how Hal is stupid. They kept making a big point about that. Like, I'm sorry I didn't get to like talk all this through in the last chapter because I had to like stop abruptly. But like Hal was stupid, which I don't know why they keep saying that because it sounds more like he's I guess you could say an animal that's like trying to survive and he like bonded to a host, and in this case is Theresa. Like I'm just trying to make sense of this. It's and I didn't really fully remember it, but it's like apparently he's dumb and then like just trusts her and like she has to like somehow appease him and like bend his will. And so it's less like she's trying to control him and more like I don't know. I mostly like there's that. They're like apparently howls have existed for a while or like the species has. I kind of forgot. I'm gonna be honest. I started to kind of blank out a bit and um yeah, she like something to do with like evolution, which I was gonna bring up, but that seems kind of conflicting. You could say because they were talking about like the dinosaurs and like meteors and whatnot. That seems kind of conflicting with the like the Catholic viewpoint. I don't know how much of like I mean where it was Adam and Eve, and it was before the whole dinosaur thing. So it's just like he's making a character that's a believer, but I don't know if the story exists in whatever. You know what? I don't care. Let's just start chapter 8. I don't know how long or short this is, but let's begin. Chapter 8. I returned to my hotel room and looked out the window for the first time. The 58th floor gave a spectacular view of a city that seemed to stretch out to infinity. I could see millions of lights and figured no city could be this big. The furthest light had to be far beyond London. I had to save all these people, and 1,000 times as many as the rest of the world. I looked up to heaven and prayed, "Oh, Father in heaven, take this away from me. But if you don't want to take it away, at least help me get through it." What the heck was I doing here? Does an 18-year-old American girl belong in London with a mission to save humanity? It was crazy. Blair did a good job. He didn't mention the disasters to come and kept me thinking about Hal. But now, alone in my room, I had nothing to think about but the job ahead of me. But it worked both ways. What must people be thinking about an 18-year-old girl getting Hal's awesome power? They were probably already assassins down there, staking out the hotel for a chance to get me. I felt tired and went to bed. I woke up with a dread of the day. The PM had put me at ease during our talk and helped guide me to the thrill of solving the Hal mystery that weighed heavily on me for 8 years. Now, lying alone in the hotel, next page. Lying alone in the hotel bedroom, the significance of the challenges facing me, unfiltered by the smiles of Peter Blair, was depressing. How could I get through it? I called room service for a breakfast delivered in only 15 minutes. I watched television while eating. All the media people on the channels were talking exclusively about me. I swear, if this is like the third or fourth chapter where it's just her talking about people talking about her again and not moving on with the disaster, I am Anyway, whatever. Uh, yeah, exclusively about me. The whole world had stopped what it was doing to avoid creating news that might interrupt my story. People on the street were questioned for their opinions of me. They were universally supportive. Of course they were. Theresa is awesome. Theresa is a darling. We think she'll do the job. Good luck, Theresa. I think this would be more pressuring than anything else, but whatever. These people don't even really know her person. Whatever. Whatever. While observing the comments on the media, I came to realize something. The crazy terrorists would come after me, but no politicians who depended on public support would ever take me on. It would be political suicide. The people would storm his government building and throw him in the street. The television switched to some remarks President Veronica Stinson made to the press hours earlier, shortly after I went to bed. When we face invincible threats to our lives and well-being, we feel a loss of influence to what happens to us. We're helpless and impotent. In desperation, we support a hero who promises to save us. For some, it was Napoleon. For others, Lenin, Hitler, or Senator McCarthy. Now we look at Empress Theresa. Now we look at Theresa Hartley. But while the four men I mentioned had their own agenda, Theresa is working for a higher cause. She will submit her will to a higher will. Let us look forward with confidence and trust. Theresa is fighting for us. It didn't rival the Gettysburg Address. President Stinson was no Lincoln, but it said what was needed. It said what was needed. Oh, I'm surprised that didn't say it was better than the Gettysburg at this point. Apparently, the hotel told the Prime Minister I was awake, because while I was eating, he called to ask if he could come by and take me to the police I had asked for. Sure, anytime. I need some luggage. Luggage was brought up from the hotel shops in 10 minutes. The television showed Steve arriving at London Airport for a flight to London. He had trouble getting one. Everybody wanted to fly home to wait for Armageddon. Then he had the bright idea of giving them his name first and then asking for a flight. A limousine was sent to him in 90 minutes. Okay, I don't know if that's how it works. What did he think of me now? A wife should not keep secrets that involved her, and I didn't tell him about Hal. Would he be mad? Could he forgive? Was he coming to London with divorce papers for me to sign? That's quite a jump, I guess. The television showed something else. Somebody had started a doomsday clock. They estimated the total amount of food reserves in the world and subtracted the number of tons people were eating every second. Nobody could know the exact amount of food storage in every corner of the world. Somebody had estimated at a reasonable number of 800 million tons and started counting from there. The number was dropping 40 tons a second. We had 228 days to go. Thanks for reminding me. The PM arrived in mid-morning, and we left in his Bentley. Where are we going? I asked. A friend of mine has a considerably large estate not far from here. He called me and offered to shelter... Next page. Offered to shelter you. I think you'll like it. His name is Edmund Parker. He has a charming family, a wife, and 4 children. I was satisfied with that. A family environment would be nice. I was watching television this morning. The dummies are saying all kinds of stupid things. They say Hal can't be made of dark matter. They say dark matter can't stick together, can't use energy, and can't do anything with matter. They say I've been communicating with Hal, and stopping the wind was a plot to make me look like a hero. They say when the government grabbed me, okay, there's a comma in the wrong spot. They say when the government grabbed, comma, me Hal, promised to get me out of the plane and keep me alive until a ship came. Sounds like a cheap made-for-TV movie. I heard all that. It's disgraceful. It's more than disgraceful. It's stupid. They wasted no time. We only talked a few hours ago. don't know who's talking sometimes. I will never talk to reporters. I can't waste time on idiots. They tell lies to build up viewership. They will be exposed as liars. This is a building. This building sandcastles as the tide comes in. Those who ignore the conscious will kill it. One of my teachers said that. The more I see of the world, the less I like it. People are unpredictable. They don't act according to their professed beliefs. Well, aren't you one to talk? Sorry. You can't find enough trustworthy people to fill an elevator. I think people have stopped thinking about morality altogether. Blair was silent a long time after that. I sensed he worried about keeping me in control. I'm making you worry. Why? Those who adhere to a system of morality, admirable as they may be, are often the most unyielding in their endeavors. Like who? Radical Islamic terrorists, for example. Why do they do that? The promise of changing yourself from nobody to somebody is irresistible to terrorists and to cults of all kinds. It draws in the alienated and disaffected. I won't try to set up a religious movement, if that's what you mean. The best inspiration is a good example. Father Donati said that. He taught me a lot. I changed the subject. So wait, are they talking about like a religious movement? Okay, I was gonna say they better not start talking about literally worshipping Theresa. Anyway, I changed the subject. Remember when you asked if anything could be made out of dark matter? I asked Steve the same question. He was talking with some physics majors, and he mentioned dark matter. I never heard of the stuff and asked him if anything could be made from it. Sure, he said. It would hold itself together by its own gravity. Atomic nuclei never get close enough to feel each other's gravity. If an atom was the size of the United States, the nucleus would be a baseball in Kansas where Dorothy lived. Sorry, I had to say that with the accent. He laughed. If you have two atoms the size of the United States, you have two baseballs as far apart as New York and California. They can't feel each other's gravity, but dark matter particles can touch each other, and atomic nuclei too. The gravity gets very strong. Hal uses gravity to hold together. Some dark matter particles may have a kind of stickiness too. It doesn't take much to hold stuff together. DNA is held together by hydrogen bonds that are very weak, but there's millions of them, so DNA is strong. Later, Steve changed his story a little. He said a dark matter body couldn't hold itself together by itself. It would need a piece of solid matter to act as an anchor for its organization. Matter only needs itself to stay together. Hal needs to cling to something in our visible universe, or he would fall apart. And there's one more thing. A rock is too rigid. Hal needs his host to have some fluidity. The logical choice is water. We think of rocks being dry, but they always have lots of water. Water molecules have some attraction for each other, which is why it's liquid instead of gas, and they can move around. The rigid rock provides the lattice Hal needs. The sticky water molecules provide fluidity. Gravity lets Hal keep his own particles together while clinging to the rock and water, and momentum from something gives Hal his version of energy. A living host like me provides the rigidity and fluidity Hal needs. You did say something about Hal needing matter to hold his order together last night. I didn't know what you meant. I didn't think it was the time to go into it deeply last night. Who would understand it? Can Hal act as an extended space between his host? Yeah. Think of a computer. A 50-pound desktop computer is all controlled by a chip no larger than a fingernail. The Earth's atmosphere has a certain kind of rigidity too. I can never say this word that well. It's fluid, but it takes hours or days for air masses to move around much. Hal does things in a fraction of a second. The air changes slowly enough for Hal to use it as a lattice. You refer to Hal as he instead of it. Is there a reason? Sorry. I thought he was an alien for a long time. It's males who go out seeking adventure. I don't know why. It's like the guys who climb Mount Everest. A quarter of them are killed or permanently injured. A surgeon lost the use of his hand from frostbite. What's the point? This might not be a safe topic to pursue. He returned to Hal. How does Hal use energy? I smiled. You're getting a lot of heat? I am. He didn't catch the weak pun. Steve said something made of dark matter can use momentum instead of energy. A mass of matter colliding with Hal would transfer its momentum to him by gravity. This momentum passes through Hal as he pushes matter on the other side. Think of a train with a locomotive in the rear. The locomotive pushes the train, and the car in front flattens the car of some idiot trying to beat the signal lights. Your husband explained this without knowing about Hal? He could see I was interested, but not why. How important was he to developing your theory of Hal? Without Steve, I wouldn't have a clue what to think about Hal. I think I would have told you I can't do anything and gone home. You might drop Steve a thank you note. There was a silent pause. Then I said, if President... I can't turn these pages. If President Martin hadn't tried to kill me, I would have taken the secret of Hal to my grave. What did he think of this wind thing? He made no statement. He is in seclusion. Rumor has it he had a mental breakdown. His family protects him from the public eye. The poor guy. If he had destroyed Hal, he'd be a hero. Steve would say he overreached himself. You can only be what you know you can be. I disagree with that. You can only do what you know to do. That sums up who we are. Ah, like Shakespeare, Macbeth, Richard III, King Lear, Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, all reached for something beyond their reach. I wanted a quiet life. That was out of my reach. This is like the Caine Mutiny. Do you know that story? We're going into another... Let's talk about this other story thing. Yes, it's required reading for all leaders. If the Navy had thoroughly investigated things before the trial, maybe the trial and all its embarrassment could have been avoided. I believe you're right. If President Martin had invited me to the White House to talk things over, maybe this mess could have been avoided. Now I have to take on a ton of responsibility like Queen Victoria, except that she only had England to worry about. Blair's earlier references to Shakespeare's characters hadn't gotten the message across to me. He tried again. Let's not miss another literary allegory. In Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, a man named Kurtz goes deep into the heart of Africa. He's hired to find ivory, but his own personal ambition is to civilize the natives. It worked in reverse. The natives made him a savage. It takes 1,000 years to change a culture. His efforts to do it in a short time ruined him. I got the message. In other words, you want me to save the world, but not try to change it. Quite right. Don't worry, I'm not a social worker. Yeah, well, you have to believe in something or your mind shuts off. This Kurtz guy believed in the wrong thing. He believed in the impossible. His mind shut down. My mind was simple. Just save the world. I turned my mind to happier times, while I still had a mind. So she's admitting that she's mindless? I'm sorry, I could make a joke about that, but whatever. When Steve and I first started dating, the girls said we were naturals for each other. They were right. We hit it off immediately and got married in a night, apparently. Neither of us were great talkers. There were periods of silence, but that was all right. We were bored by the constant chattering other kids felt they had to keep all the time. It was good to know you didn't have to do that with your companion. Neither of us was on the inside crowd in high school. Steve had dates with only 3 girls, and the relationships didn't get very far. I don't freaking care. He didn't even go to his senior prom. When he was a teenager, He lived only a mile from a small university. He visited the campus many times and saw the beautiful girls. He knew the best was yet to come when he got to college and did not worry that much about high school dating. I had dated only one boy in high school, Jeff Winslow, a geeky kid with red hair and glasses, a nice kid, a cheerful kid, someone fun to be with, a boy who took me to all the school events, including the senior prom. Next page. Ugh, these are just walls of text of frickin' previous life stuff. How long is this chapter? Oh my gosh, this is a frickin'. Jeff was the only high school boy who ever had the nerve to ask me out, partly the price of being a female baseball star, but also because I was so beautiful, boys were afraid of being put down. Jeff would probably marry an average girl, but for the rest of his life, he would remember he had once dated a drop dead gorgeous woman. What a freaking narcissist. He helped me through the teen years and showed me a boy could be a friend. He made me feel I was worth something. I owed him a lot. Neither of us had a large circle of friends in college. Steve wasn't heavily into sports or the party scene, although he wasn't a misanthrope either. He talked easily to anybody. He just didn't seek them out. He concentrated on his major because he actually wanted to get a job when he graduated, not move back in with his parents as many graduates did. I was not that popular with the girls. I wasn't interested in their gossipy talk, and they thought I was a snob. Yes, I wasn't like the other girls. In fact, the years of worrying about my situation with Hal had made me serious at an early age. I left the usual teenage girls' concerns behind me long ago. I skipped over the 13-year-old girl's obsessions with makeup, hairstyles, rock music stars, designer clothes, and boys. Yes, I'm not like the other girls. Look how great I am. I worried about what Hal would mean in my future. As a result, girls talked about me being of indeterminate gender orientation. Are you freaking kidding me? It's going into this territory. Not a word of truth in it, but perhaps this also kept the boys away. I was not willing to talk about the scandals of people not present. In college, I heard talk of girls doing incredibly bad things they read about in magazines. They didn't seem aware they had eternity to worry about. They had eternity to worry about, not uneternity. The first being was not a composite, composite, because nothing preceded him, and he could get nothing from something else, nor could anything be taken away from him since he had no parts. Something that is not a composite has to be its own essence, which was that which makes it what it is. God's existence is his essence, because he has nothing else, and existence, if there is any, can have no beginning or end. Therefore, he is eternal. Catholic students at BC had to take some religion or philosophy courses. 2 weeks into my philosophy course, the instructor was replaced by somebody who is heavy into Aquinas. I don't know. I was sure this was done for my benefit. Somebody wanted me to have a solid grounding in theology. It was likely the Holy Father. After BC, I found the sermons of prosperity religion, Tevangelists infantile. God as Santa Claus? No, God as Father. Steve and I did have things in common that attracted each other. We ran through the whole list of positive qualities as well as balanced personalities. A whole bookshelf of books a whole bookshelf of books would have to be written to say everything that could be said about us, despite the fact that we never actually get to see you two interact at any point really during high school. You mention a few things, but you never have any natural common dialogue with each other. Way to have your priorities straight, because right now I am losing my patience and I am losing my mind trying to read this. Well balanced. Yeah, the whole list of positive things and balanced personalities. In fact, it's so deep that we didn't even get to tell you about it. A whole book said about us. We both had respect for the truth in ourselves, and in all things that was important in finding out what each other was about. Neither could have gotten away with faking good points, and neither would try. But perhaps the most fundamental characteristic we shared was simplicity. Yes, because you have very simplistic character development, don't you? We were not complicated by the internal contradictions that made Hollywood celebrity fodder for the tabloids. Our hearts were built on the best moral standards that thousands of years of human experiment had developed. We were simply good people, and if the tabloids would find us boring, then so be it, probably. So be it, yeah. Yeah, just take our word for it, because I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, I'm trying to speed read this, because I'm honestly just getting sick of this. After a 70-minute ride, we arrived at Edmund Parker's magnificent estate. The house was 300 feet from the road with a perfectly flat lawn in front. It was built in the Old English post and beam style, sometimes called Tudor. This place, for that's what it looked like to me, was 120 feet long and 3 stories high. To the sides and rear of the house was a forest where thousands of British soldiers were moving in. My car door was opened by a maid, and I got out. A 50-ish a 50-ish butler with a broad smiling face opened the Prime Minister's door. The Schaefer, I can never pronounce this word, I'm sorry. Schaefer and 2 maids took care of the luggage. No words were spoken as the butler guided the group through the front door. I thought this was odd. Edmund Parker and his family stood to the side, next to the door to one of the living rooms. Peter Blair walked over to them immediately. "This way, madame," said the butler, leading me to the side of the grand staircase. We went into an elevator. I thought not being introduced to the family was odd too. Why didn't I meet the family? "The British respect your privacy, madam. They understand why you're here and won't speak to you unless you speak first." I can't imagine what's happening in the States. It doesn't matter here either in normal time. It doesn't matter here either in normal times. Every moment of your time is the world's treasure because you're just the greatest freaking character ever. "Can I ask your name?" "Arthur Bemming, at your service. Everybody calls me Arthur." We had arrived at the 3rd-floor bedroom. It was more like an apartment with a sitting room, dressing room, and bathroom. This would be considered the master bedroom in an expensive American home. I wondered how small, or how many of these bedrooms there were in this place. "Susan will attend your needs," said Arthur. "She will go shopping for you if you wish." Susan was a 20-something maid with the same enthusiastic attitude of Nancy back at the hotel. I was overwhelmed by the luxury of this home, but I managed to smile for Smoozin. I managed to smile for Susan. I turned on the television to check on Steve's progress. It showed a huge crowd in St. Peter's Square. The Pope had asked all humanity to pray for me every day, and he was leading them in saying the Rosary. The scene switched to the other churches all over the world. The churches were packed with people. In one day, I had inspired a larger religious revival than all the television evangelists in history, because of course you did. Steve's plane landed in London. The Prime Minister sent people to greet him and drive him to the Parker estate. Arthur guided him straight up to the door on the 3rd-floor bedroom and discreetly made himself vanish. Steve came in. I forgot to give him his, whatever accent, that New York accent in the previous chapter. I was just inside the door and wrapped my arms around his neck immediately. "Oh gosh, I'm so glad you came." Again, blasphemy, I can't say the word. "When I thought you were dead, I wanted to die too. What would I do without my Theresa? I should have told you about Hal. No, I wouldn't have needed to marry you to prove..." Next page. "Something instead for yourself. Wait, hold up, sorry. No, I wouldn't have needed to marry you to prove something instead of for yourself. Okay? Hal has nothing to do with us." I smiled. The issue was dead that quickly. No tears, no histrionics, I don't know. No complaints. It was always so simple with Steve. Anybody who was hoping to see our marriage break up and fill the talk shows with drivel, whatever, would be disappointed. Nobody cares as much as she does about how her frickin' marriage is. "How are my parents?" "Your mother is having a rough time. First you were dead. I forgot what accent I gave him, I don't care. First you were dead. Then you were invaded by an alien. Then they said you fell out of the plane. Then they say Then they said you were screaming in the water. Then they found you in the water and declared you dead again. Then you came back to life. Now it's your job to save the world. That's a lot for a mother to take. How's she doing? She's confused. The doctor said she's always thought of herself as your mom. Of course, even though they only met for who knows how long. I don't know. She was supposed to take care of you. There's nothing she can do to help you. She's lost her purpose. We'll get used to it. Your father told me to come take care of you. He was right. We had a lot to talk about. Steve described what he was doing in those 2 weeks, because of course we don't get to hear anything really about Steve. He's just a satellite love interest, really, in those 2 weeks. And how people we knew were reacting. I added interesting details not previously revealed in the news. After 50 minutes of this, we decided to finish later and went downstairs to meet the household. We went to the foyer. The Edmund Parker family could be seen sitting quietly in a huge living room. They looked like they'd wait there weeks for us. Who are those people? Steve asked. I'm not sure. I think they live here. Arthur said they won't bother us unless we speak first. Who's Arthur? The butler. Oh yeah. Shall we meet the folks? We lumbered into the living room with as much dignity as unpolished Americans could muster. The Parker family stood up and gave welcoming smiles. How do you do, sir? Said Steve. Steve Hartley. You probably know Theresa. Edmund Parker, sir. This is Helen. The wife extended her hand, and we shook it in turn. My 16-year-old John. The son shook hands enthusiastically. Stephanie, 12 years. The girl was thrilled to meet the guests, though top rock stars would not have seen a wider smile. Jennifer, 10 years. The younger girl was shy but excited. We have an older son in the military. Edmund Parker waved his hand to invite everybody to sit down. We made small talk, followed by a tour of the house. I was dazzled by its opulence. There were more objects in it than could be discussed in a day. It reminded me of the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. You couldn't get a good look at everything in less than a week. This house was a palace. I joked, I may never go home. Steve and I could have eaten by ourselves, but we ate with the Parkers. After an excellent dinner, Steve became very drowsy. When did you sleep last night? When did you sleep last night? I asked. Saturday, I think. I pointed a finger to the ceiling. Off to bed with you, young man. Steve went upstairs. Next page. Helen Parker and I drifted to the family room, which was on the right of the foyer, unlike the living room on the left, and we did some female bonding. Finally, I felt sleepy too and excused myself. Steve was fast asleep. I quietly slipped into bed. Oh, please, do not go here. Do not go there. Do not go there, please. Sorry, adjusting myself. Tuesday was a day of setting in. I was not ready to tackle the difficult work of cracking the HAL communication code that I would have to invent myself. Early Wednesday, that's one word. Early Wednesday morning, Steve and I walked around the Parker estate to unwind. The woods began about 150 feet behind the house. The edge was mostly a small number of widely separated large old trees. This cultivated edge extended some 100 feet in. Beyond that, the woods had a more natural density. It'd be easier to read if 100 was hyphenated, but whatever. Density. It was here that the soldiers could be seen. They were assembled in small groups of about a dozen. No more than 100 feet separated these groups, sometimes less if the bush was too thick to see far. As we walked within sight of hundreds of these soldiers, it was obvious they made an impenetrable wall around the Parker house. I waved to the soldiers, who happily waved back. But actually waking up to the soldiers and talking with them didn't seem like a good idea at the moment. As Steve said, anything we say will leak to the press. They'll try to twist it around. We returned to the house to eat lunch. After that, I decided it was time to start organizing a strategy for breaking through to Hal. I'd use a third floor den in the park the Parkers had offered to me to do my work. Steve knew he couldn't do much to help me. I was the mathematician. He left me alone and went downstairs. The first thing Thursday morning, an agent from. Oh my gosh, I closed the book for a second, I'm sorry. An agent from Scotland Yard called to ask if he could come to the Parker estate and talk with me. The SY agent arrived, and we sat down with him in the living room. He explained. As we expected, you are getting an enormous quantity of mail from all over the world. Our concern is attempts on Mrs. Hartley's life. Letters may contain Letters may contain poisonous substances, packages may contain bombs. We suggest that our people screen this mail before it's delivered to you. Sure, said Steve. Sure, I agreed. It will also help our work. Any threatening mail could give us information about the terrorist groups and other dangerous people. Absolutely, go ahead, Steve said. This was all the visit was about. It could have been done by phone. Everybody wanted to see me in person. The first delivery of mail arrived Thursday afternoon. There were 6,000 letters and 200 packages, large and small. The man driving the delivery truck said this was a small beginning. There would be a lot more Friday. While I was busy upstairs, no comma, while I was busy upstairs, Steve started going through the letters. Maybe there doesn't need to be a comma. Going through the letters, which were already opened. There was no possibility of reading so much mail, never mind answering it. So he asked Arthur for some cardboard boxes and planned to trash any letters that didn't appear to have anything worth reading. He skimmed through the letters every 10 seconds. After a couple dozen letters, he hit on one that had a check in it. It was from France, and the check was for 50 euros, roughly 50 American dollars. Excuse me. He put that letter aside and continued. A couple of minutes later, he found another letter with a check in it, this time for 100 euros. He had barely begun going through the huge pile of mail and already had 2 checks. He read this letter, which was in English, and found the writer was sending the money as a kind of payment to Madame Theresa for saving his life. Madame Theresa. I don't know. Steve kept working through the mail all afternoon and found that about 1 in 60 letters contained checks. There was something about people's mentality that made them think paying me to save their lives would get me to do it. He'd kept a list of the check amounts and now he added them up. The euros came to 1,800. There was around 1,000 in American dollars and a few hundred in various other denominations. This was from one afternoon's work, and far more mail was promised for tomorrow. The Hartley family financial situation had taken a new turn. I came down for supper. You're getting a lot of money in the mail, Steve said. Oh yeah? How come? They want to thank you for saving their necks. He showed me the amounts he'd found that afternoon. I raised my eyebrows. You think I should keep it? Why not? You're earning it. As the weeks went on, we settled into a routine. 3 hours was about all I could take doing the intense work I was doing. That's right, because we're just told that she's doing intense work with math or whatever. So after working from 8 to 11 in the morning, I'd take a walk around the estate with Steve. Then it was lunch. This is so boring. Then work from 1 to 4 in the afternoon and a couple of hours of reading or television before dinner. Finally, maybe an hour or 2 of work in the evening before winding down to bedtime. By Monday, I was getting homesick for my parents. Using the telephone was out. So was email and snail mail. I don't know what that is. It was sure to be intercepted. Steve asked Arthur to go to the Prime Minister and ask if some kind of courier courier, I don't know how to say this word, of course, either. I'm just illiterate, I guess. Courier service could be set up to move mail between me and my parents. Easily done, answered the PM. I wrote to Mom. I'm sorry, I'm really trying not to fall asleep. Dear Mom, I know a lot of things are going on right now, and you feel helpless. Don't worry about me. You raised me right. You taught me to care about people, to think things out, to react to things without being a drama queen, and to have a positive outlook. I don't know what the future will bring, but Steve is here with me, and we will get through this. Remember how I told you that when a baseball game was being lost, I said it's not going to end this way? This won't. Take care of Dad. I know fathers worry over their daughters too. I love you both. Theresa. Every Wednesday, the Prime Minister appeared in the House of Commons in a duty called Questions to the Prime Minister. This week, hard questions were expected about me. This is just the rest of the book, it's just answering questions. How could I be trusted with my burden if even I didn't know what I was going to do? I was the world's worst nightmare, an ordinary girl that was about to take control of the world. The implications even terrified me. Could I handle so much power? The world worried about my character. Pundits said nobody with the power I was on the road to acquiring could remain humble. Yeah, you certainly aren't humble yourself. I would go mad with my self-importance and fame. I would blackmail the world into doing what I wanted. I would become a power-mad dictator. Others thought there was no reason to think I would behave that way. My past indicated nothing in my personality to make me change. It was the question of the day, and when Prime Minister Blair walked into the House, you could see in the eyes of the members they couldn't wait to have at him. My BC philosophy professor warned us not to get into long-winded arguments with atheists. Those who don't understand what they're talking about will talk all day. If you do understand what you're talking about, you can express it in a few simple words like Abraham Lincoln in his Gettysburg Address. The Gettysburg Address was not, like, super short. I don't really get that. And, this really says a lot considering that she doesn't really, simplify all of this or any of that and, like, cuts out all the filler, you could say. I mean, I've been reading for, 42 minutes and 45 seconds. Great. Prime Minister Blair brought out 100 points about me I hadn't thought of myself. This was his Gettysburg Address. A member from the opposition stood up and asked, "Can the Honorable Prime Minister assure this House that his lonely decision, our esteemed friend, Mrs. Hartley, can be trusted with this arduous task, which she herself described the most impossible ever imposed on a human being, without abundant assistance from His Majesty's government?" Blair jumped to the table with his book of notes to answer. This time was crucial to my decision. Mrs. Hartley has been working on the problem for years. A team of assistants might take months to understand her theories and reach consensus on strategy. Let us give her a chance to make progress. He stalled and became pensive to get full control of his audience. We should consider how it could come to be that Theresa Hartley was chosen to be host to Hal. Her character is impeccable. Her intellect is of the finest quality. No more perfect choice could be found for her task. Hal merged with her when she was 10. A few years earlier, and she would have told everybody about Hal, with most unfortunate results for her and us. Excuse me. A few years later, she might not have developed the skills needed for the challenge. But she received Hal at age 10, old enough to know to keep Hal a secret, but young enough to set herself on that path of intellectual development to enable her to address the Hal problem. Did all these happy circumstances happen by chance, or by design? Now he really had their attention. They sat in stony silence, wondering where he was going. Mrs. Hartley is not vindicative. You saw she had not said a word about the assassination attempt in our long discussion. Not a reprobing word from her for the man who tried to kill her. The morning after I drove her to Mr. Parker's. The morning after, there should be a comma because I thought it was going to go into a thing. The morning after I drove her to The morning after, comma, I drove her to Mr. Parker's. She expressed sorrow for, in her words, the poor guy. This is Theresa Hartley. She is the woman chosen to save us all. This is Saint. Next page. This is Saint Theresa among us now. The House stood up as one to cheer his answer, but the leader of the opposition wouldn't let it rest. He stood up and was recognized. Is the Prime Minister aware it may come to pass Mrs. Hartley, acting alone, can do anything she wants, no matter how outrageous, and the whole world can't stop her? The PM jumped back up. Who will trust the committee? We know Theresa well enough. The only thing that can stop Theresa is her own conscience, and it will. The opposition leader kept at it. Does the Prime Minister agree a person with good conscience in ordinary circumstances can be overwhelmed in the extraordinary and be changed for the worse? I'm so sorry. I'm so trying not to fall asleep. There is only one version of the truth. Theresa knows it and lives by it. I spoke with President Stinson last evening. She said everything is known about Theresa. Their intelligence agency has a room full of reports and tapes on every moment of her life for 8 years. Teams of psychologists have studied these documents. There is nothing to suggest a fault in the steadiness of her character despite her youth. She was grounded on rock, not sand. And again, does the Prime Minister agree a person with a conscience should not be a physician if he has not been so trained? Or one in a position of power without adequate education and experience? My honorable friend points to jobs requiring skills, but Theresa does not set out to manipulate organs or people. Theresa's only job requires cleverness and a good heart. And another question. Does the Prime Minister agree it may come to pass we have a person in power without democratic representation? President Stinson's people have studied Theresa and agree she supports democratic principles, but how do you make control of how democratic? How do you make control of how democratic? I do not believe she will do anything contrary to people's wishes. Have courage, she will ask nothing from us. One more shot. Is the Prime Minister aware it is written, as the heavens in height and the earth in depth, the heart of kings is unfathomable? It is also written, by patience is a ruler persuaded, and a soft tongue will break a bone. The story of man is that the individual must deal with the world. In this case, it can work both ways. The world must deal with Theresa. I know I'm trying to deal with her. She and we must deal with each other reasonably. Better to be alone in the jungle than in a dictatorship, but also better to be a fisherman than a governor of men if the people speak ill of you. Theresa will return kindness given to her. A woman rose to pose a question no American politician would get away with, but this was not America. Oh yeah, these are British people. Does the Prime Minister agree a man's reaction to criticism is laughter, while a woman's reaction is unpredictable? The House burst out in laughter. It liked nothing better than a loaded question, and this one was a minefield. Blair milked the moment, looking around. Next page. Oh, final page, thank goodness. Looking around like he was afraid to answer. His expression was hilarious. Even Steve and I, watching the Parker residence, were laughing. Finally, the PM got serious and paused. The sense of the moment was that he was about to deliver an ultimatum of some kind. Here it is whether you like it or not, and live with it. The world held its breath for 27 seconds. I understand your fears. What human being can bear the responsibilities demanded of this woman? It hardly seems possible. We've seen many strong men broken from lesser challenges, men trained 30 or 40 years for their tasks. What shall we do if a child leads us? And make no mistake, Theresa is younger than many of the children and grandchildren of the members of this house. Who are we dealing with? Will she change? I say Theresa's interests and endeavors may change, but not her heart. It is too well considered. It is written, worse than death is the life of a fool. But we saw in my talk with her, Theresa is no fool. Woe to thee when your king is a child, says the good book. But Theresa, I don't know what citation that is in the Bible, but oh well. But Theresa shows a lack of response to recent ill events. It is also written, you are the light of the world. A city set on a mountain cannot be hidden. You are the light of the world. Are they trying to say that Theresa is Jesus Christ? Because that's what Christ said about himself in John 8:12. Like, Theresa's works will be seen by all. She can only do good works if she cares at all what we will think of her. And we've seen she does. A philosopher who lived a few miles from Theresa's home. In dealing with truth, we are immortal, and need fear no change nor accident. A woman who puts her trust in a higher power will be unchanged. Theresa will remain Theresa. Oh my gosh, I am so getting sick of this. Okay, oh my gosh, again, for 3 chapters, it's been nothing but just shilling and saying, oh, these people online, we need to interview her and frickin', talk about how great she is and whatnot. Like, they just keep going back and forth, between characterization with, what's convenient. It's first things first, she's talking about how much attention she's gotten, how much it's gonna, freaking buckle her under pressure, and then the next she's, despite hating the attention, she's apparently comfortable talking about how she dressed up in, a skimpy dress or something for out, the entire world to see, and apparently the entire world just friggin' loves her for that. And I'm getting, I don't get it. Sometimes they say stuff like, oh, this is, the most impossible task on anybody absolutely ever, and then the next time they're just like, oh, yeah, she just needs a good heart and everything. Everybody, it's like she, what, if she does Hal give her, some sort of mind control powers to just make the rest of the world completely stupid, or, just become sheep to just follow her for no reason, and whatnot? I am, oh my gosh, this is, like, this is actually getting painful. What am I doing right now? 3 chapters. What I swear, for 5 other chapters, am I just gonna be reading more of this, just shilling? This isn't fun. This is not fun to read. It's I thought this would just be funny, Mary Sue nonsense and whatnot. It is just freaking boring. I am not even kidding. I am almost in tears right now. Oh my gosh. I just woke up and I already want to go back to sleep. This. Oh my goodness. Whatever. I'll see you in the next chapter. Hopefully things get better, but I think we know the answer to that.